This is Your Anxiety Toolkit, episode 111. Welcome to Your Anxiety Toolkit. I'm your host, Kimberly Quinlan. This podcast is fueled by three main goals. The first goal is to provide you with some extra tools to help you manage your anxiety. Second goal, to inspire you. Anxiety doesn't get to decide how you live your life. And number three, and I leave the best for last, is to provide you with one big, fat virtual hug. Because experiencing anxiety ain't easy. If that sounds good to you, let's go. Well, welcome back. My name is Kimberly Quinlan. I am so thrilled to be here with you again on this beautiful summer day here in Los Angeles. And wherever you are, I am sending you big love and a big splash of peace and love and joy on the side. Okay. I'm going to go straight into the I Did a Hard Thing segment because number one, I loved it so much. And number two, I then want to share with you an incredible guest talking about a really important and very interesting topic. I think you might find this episode to be quite enlightening and quite relieving because I left feeling quite relieved and lighter at the end of the recording. So here we go. This is from Aubrey. And Aubrey messaged me on Instagram to tell me her hard thing she has been doing. And I loved it. Here it is. This past Tuesday started out as rough. As I was driving to my college for a tutoring appointment, I wasn't paying attention to how fast I was going, and unfortunately, I received a speeding ticket. After the police handed me the ticket and let me go, my anxiety tried to convince me of two things. Number one, cancel your tutoring appointment, and number two, go home and be upset and anxious all day. Holy moly, I resonate with that so much. But the cool thing is, she continues to say, a few years ago, I would have listened to my anxiety, but instead, I went to my tutoring appointment, I got lunch, I carried on with my day as I had planned. That was a very hard thing for me to do. I was uncomfortable and anxious for the rest of the day, but I chose to bring my anxiety with me. And I completed my Tuesday with confidence in myself. Well, Aubrey, this is the best. This is a great example of where, sometimes life doesn't go to plan. And sometimes I think we want to just stop and ruminate and put ourselves down and, spend a lot of time trying to resist the fact that it had happened. But you went on with your day. You took care of yourself. You lived a day based on your values, not based on whatever emotion was showing up. So thank you for that. What a fantastic submission to the I Did a Hard Thing segment. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's move over to this incredible interview. It was so fun to have Dr. Jenn Hardy on as a guest. Now, some of you may know Dr. Jenn Hardy. She is the amazing psychologist behind the Instagram handle Dr. Jenn Hardy. That's Dr. JENN HARDY. Sorry, I know my accent puts a swing on the word Hardy. So Dr. Jenn Hardy. She is a psychologist who works out of Tennessee. She has a really wonderful view and swing on psychology. And I think one of the coolest things about the work that she does is she really promotes this idea, which we talk about today, which is affordable self-care. And what she is talking about here is flipping the narrative that we have around self-care, and that it has to be luxurious and cost a lot of money and, it has to be over the top, and that we need those things to have self-care. She really brings us back to the grassroots, the ground, the basics. And I found it incredibly enlightening to talk about self-care in a way that I feel is much more doable, much more manageable, much more sustainable. And so I just love this episode. Number one, she's an awesome human being and so easy to chat with. I had such a great time just going back and forward and bouncing ideas off of each other. Number two, obviously, so clearly a wonderful clinician and a very, very good therapist. So I always love, chatting with people who I admire and respect. And number three, you guys are going to walk away with a huge handful of self-care tips and tools that you can apply on a zero budget. She's incredible. So, again, some of you may already be following her. We do reference Instagram quite a bit, and that's because that's where we met and that's where a huge part of her platform is. So if you're not on Instagram, it doesn't matter. You don't need to be on Instagram to really follow along. And so, yay, let's just go into it. I'm so excited to share this episode, and I really do hope it inspires you to create a different self-care plan that is longer lasting, doable, something that you can keep going and practice and tweak and tweak and tweak as you go. All right? All my love to you guys. I really am sending out much love. I really am loving the feedback you guys are giving and reviewing on the podcast. So please, if you enjoy the show, it's free. I don't take any sponsorship. I don't take any Patreon. If you at all feel like it lines up with your mission and you want to support us here over at CBT School, please just leave a review. It's free to leave a review, and I really, really appreciate the support. So I'm just going to go on and let you guys enjoy the episode. Well, welcome. I am so thrilled to have Jenn Hardy on with us today. She's a licensed psychologist in Maryville, Tennessee. Did I get that?
You did pretty good. Yeah, Maryville, Tennessee.
Tennessee. All right, I got it. And this is a conversation I wasn't expecting that you and I would have, but I'm so grateful we're going to be having it because it's such a topic that comes up in my office. And I know it's a topic that comes up on Instagram when, I'm posting different posts. And I think that you have a really wonderful, usable idea here. Not that it's even that brand spanking new, but I think it brings us back to the ground level, which I always love to do. So today, what we're going to talk about is what you phrase as affordable self-care. So welcome first.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. This is my first podcast ever. So thank you for showing me the ropes.
Of course.
I'm excited to be here.
You're going to ace it. I can tell already. So share with us, at the end, I'm going to let you share with us where people can get in touch with you and everything. But tell us a little bit about this idea or concept of affordable self-care.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the term was coined from. I just thought of it randomly one night. It's obviously a play on the term Affordable Healthcare Act, right? But affordable self-care. And I think for me, it was just a reaction to seeing self-care marketed as indulgence and the idea that in order to take care of yourself, you have to spend money. So I have an unofficial rule for myself that on any of the affordable self-care posts that I do, that my budget is $0. I'm allowed to spend no money. So these ideas have to be things that are accessible to most of us and do not cost us anything, as a way to sort of flip the script on this very much commercialized, indulgent spa version of self-care.
Right. And I resonate with that because when I think even me as a trained clinician, the first thing I think of when I think of self-care is like candles and baths and a fancy food, manicures, spa days, like all of that costs money, So share with me, like, what is it that you're actually talking about? Can you share with us, first of all, what is self-care? A little bit about that.
So really, anytime There are so many words that what we can do is we can add the word self to the front of it. And what we are talking about is the way that we are treating ourselves. So we might use the words like self-respect. So what is the respect that we show towards ourselves? Self-love. How do we love ourselves? How do we show ourselves love? And so what does self-care mean is the ways that we take care of ourselves. And sometimes people have really poor self-care. So they might neglect themselves or abuse themselves. And what we want to work towards is a healthier, more supportive, loving, kind version of taking care of ourselves. Now, I know you asked me a second part of that question and I've forgotten it.
No, that's okay, because I think that follows through perfectly. So, let's just pretend that, I'm sure everyone has an idea of what self-care is and has maybe their own self-care practice. Mm-hmm. Let's actually go right back to the basics because, again, I think we all need to challenge what we believe to be self-care. So what might be some basic versions of self-care that you find helpful?
Well, the first post that I had thrown up was, and I thought this just feels like too simple of a thing to write about. I'm supposed to have these profound ideas, right? I can laugh at myself when I get too perfectionistic about this. But the first one that I remember that I posted about was go to bed earlier. And I posted that because I am a night owl. And I know that every night I run through the same routine. I say, Jen, you really should go to bed a little earlier. And I say, but I don't want to. And then I end up staying up too late. And then I end up not getting enough sleep. And then I wake up and I'm tired. And the next day, it's harder, right? We know what it's like when we don't get enough sleep. Going to bed earlier doesn't cost any money. It's just about being intentional, recognizing that this is an important thing and it's an act of love, and having the discipline to say, okay, I know that show is really good, but I can watch it tomorrow and I need to go to bed and take care of myself.
And what was the response on Instagram like? What was that? You said it was fairly simple.
That was like the best post. It's very hard for me to break 1,000 likes. It doesn't seem to matter how many followers I have. 1,000 is very hard to get. And that was like, boom, 1,500 likes. And I'm like, wait, what? I think that we all know that we're supposed to do this. I think that we know that we're supposed to do this, and we know that we're not so good at paying attention to the little things. And I think it's because in part we get trained to say, no, it has to be something bigger. To take care of myself, it has to be this big thing that I go and do. And I guess that post was a reminder for people, no, actually, it might just be going to bed and getting 8 hours of sleep.
Right.
Not glamorous, but very helpful.
Right. And I believe, I know in the last few months, I actually made a deal with myself that I would make it not an option, that I had to make myself sleep more. And it was life-changing. Even as a clinician who knows this really well, I had no idea how much it would change my mental health, not just my physical, but just my experience of I was less anxious and I get teary when I'm tired. I wasn't sort of quivering my chin by the end of the day. It changed. And I think that we don't even really recognize how wonderful sleep can be for our mental health.
Sure. And I've had times when I've had to ask myself the question, especially when my kids were really little and they weren't sleeping so well and my sleep was really disrupted. I'd have to ask myself the question, am I anxious or am I just that kind of wired of my body knows it's so sleepy and it's trying to stay awake, so it revs? And a lot of the time I was just really sleep deprived. And I needed to just say to my husband, hey, let's take turns taking naps so we can catch up on sleep, because you're probably really sleep deprived like I am. And, he was. And making that stuff a priority, it's not fancy. It's not like this special, let's go make a trip and go get a massage, but it really makes a difference.
Right. And I think when you're so tired and maybe you're so anxious or you're having struggles, you kind of just want to run away to a hotel you know, and really what you're saying is I want a place to sleep, but you can do it if you kind of make it a part of your daily routine. This is where I love if we just slow down, even just that alone is a mic drop, I think, in terms of life changing, right?
Yeah.
Recently, I had posted on Instagram that I wanted people for one day to not say unkind things to themselves.
Oh, nice.
And just for one, and I think that that's the other piece is when we think of self-care, I think we think of it as long-term exercise plans and like these very like longer term ideas, which who has the space for that? And so what I found was really interesting is I think because I just said today's challenge, people were like, oh, great, I'm on, let's do it. You know, I'll tag a friend and we'll do it together kind of thing. Cost nothing.
It costs nothing, and it shifts the way that we treat ourselves. And we recognize, too, the areas that we have control and choice that we might have been forfeiting because we just didn't even know that they were there. This week, I did a post, affordable self-care post of give out more genuine compliments. And it's that same thing. And I thought, well, it might be hard for people to say nice things to themselves, but can they get in the practice of noticing when other people are doing things really well, or there's something about them that they appreciate? Because I think it shifts the way our brain is thinking. Instead of looking for threat or criticism or judgment, which are really anxiety generating, we're focusing on trust building, warmth, connection, and non-judgment, and that it can have a positive effect on them. I think it deepens our relationship, but I think it also internally has a positive effect if we're hunting for positive.
Right. Yeah. And it puts us into a mindful place, right? Of where instead of just being reactionary all day, we've slowed down to actually take a look around and notice what Joe's doing and what Jen's doing and all those things. So I think that these are such, like you said, they're so affordable and the benefits are so large.
Yeah. And I love that I've put this budget of $0 because it forces me to be creative. And it also reminds me that there is nothing too small that can actually be helpful. Is handing out more genuine compliments going to make somebody's OCD go away? Well, okay, probably not, right? Like, I think we can all agree it's not a magic wand. It's not something that's going to change everything, but it's all about the small acts and how they build. I was surprised by a post. I had told you about this earlier, of the post that I was almost embarrassed to put it up because it felt so, I don't know. Like, we all know this. Maybe it's just me who struggles with this. I think that's what it was. But the post was, if you need to pee, pee, don't hold it, just go. 1,500 likes. And I love it that people who see it and who are probably like, duh, Jen, we know, but thanks. But I like that they liked it, and a lot of people commented, and I'm glad that they do, because I think that a lot of us struggle with it. And when people are willing to share and say, I've had to work on this, or, oh, this is me, it really normalizes to say, see, you're not the only one that has to work on this. This is just a part of being human. And we can take these small little steps that cost no money and take no time, but might take practicing some assertiveness, but we can take care of ourselves.
Right. You know, and I love this because I think that if I didn't see this post, but if I saw it, I'd probably be like, well, yeah, but that's brilliant. You know what I mean? Like it, and that's the whole point here is often I will speak with clients about, you know, they'll often come in and be like, I just want to get better. I want to let's just do it. Come on, let's go really fast. And I always try to slow down and be like, let's actually look at what's happening and what you're doing to make it worse first before we work at adding more to your plate. And these are little tweaks where it's like, these just make it less difficult for you in life. Let's just take away the difficult things if we can. And I think that like peeing when you need to pee or drinking water when you're thirsty.
Yeah. And I think a lot of helpers or people pleasers or perfectionists, they have this expectation towards themselves that their needs don't need to be attended to. or they don't get to help themselves until they know that everybody in the room is situated. And if you're a teacher or you're, I don't know, in any helping role, I think about the teachers that commented and said, oh, this is the tough one for me. And I loved one of the commenters on the pee if you need to pee. I loved how she had said, I just had to tell my TA, I need to go to the bathroom. She didn't care, and she was fine to cover my class for a couple of minutes. Now, I get that not all teachers have assistants, and they don't have assistants in their room all the time. But I thought, see, there is somebody who's willing to say, wait, but I shouldn't have to be like holding my pee for 4 hours. Maybe there's a solution here where there's a balance where their needs can get met and my needs can get met, that it doesn't have to be one or the other. And I think for anxiety and depression and OCD, when people are struggling with these issues, they can find themselves skewing those rules to, I don't get to help myself until, and then they've got a set of conditions. And we have to learn how to be kinder and gentler with ourselves.
Yeah, put the oxygen mask on us before we put it on the children. Yeah, I think this is so profound and beautiful. I mean, we could scan through the day and find probably 1,000 opportunities to put this in practice. Like for me, I always sort of try to share personal experiences. Is for me, it's before each client, I try to just take 1 or 2 breaths, because it's so easy for me to just finish one and run into the next, or run to pee, but then run into the next, and not actually take a minute to like shake off whatever is happening and breathe it out. And even that breath changed my mindset and my body and the anxiety I may have felt. It was a life changer, and it took 12 seconds maybe.
Yeah, just a quick check-in with yourself and a moment to slow the pace down, because it is a very rare client that is going to be offended by you being 12 seconds late. They're not paying attention. They don't care, right? They would say, I'm more likely to have clients say, do you need a minute? Especially if someone leaves and then someone's coming back with me, and I'll be like, no, I've got it situated. They don't know that I've gone and done my prep ahead of time and I have my full glass of coffee or whatever, I've sorted myself out. But I think it's important as a therapist to model, it's hard to teach a client to take care of themselves if we're not taking care of ourselves. We just seem like hypocrites then, right?
Right. Now, I think what is interesting, so I love this because I actually had a client who, I'm talking about, clinical stuff here, but it applies. For the listeners, I promise you this applies, is I had a client who didn't take care of himself at all. And so I decided the only way I could model it was to stop the session right at the 50-minute mark and say to him, I'm going to stop here because I want to show you that I'm okay to take care of myself, and I'm going to set a boundary with the people around me. And then I'm going to let you, so you'll leave at the 50-minute mark instead of us going all the way to the minute that we may go over time. And then I want you to next week come back and tell me whether your vision of me changed. And he came back the following week and said, I assumed I would have thought you were selfish and, didn't care about me and, all the things. He said, I assumed that's what I would have thought about you, but I actually really respected you more because I saw you set that boundary. I saw you, even though it was sort of not as comfortable and happy ending like it can be, I saw you do that. And so therefore I did it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think it can be so liberating. I flip the script and tell people, you actually are helping other people out potentially. When you say, actually, I need to stop now. I need to be able to have a minute to eat lunch, or I'll call you back after, where you set boundaries, that is also implying some permission granting to them that if they're needing to take care of their needs, that you're going to respect that because you model it yourself. to me, I don't think that it's fair if I expect my clients to take care of themselves better than I take care of myself. Like I hold myself to the same standard that I hope for them that they can reach. And it's permission granting, right?
Which costs nothing.
Costs nothing.
Right. Why do, in your professional opinion, why do we associate self-care with words like selfishness and narcissism? Why do you, and expense, like, expensive spa day, nail, manicure? Why do you think we associate or self-care with those types of words?
Well, I think self-care has been heavily marketed, right? Pamper yourself, indulge yourself. You deserve this. And I think that for a lot of people that are more identify as helpers or perfectionists or people pleasers, I think that quickly jumps to, ooh, it seems like I'm taking care of myself at the expense of someone else. When in reality, it's, can we find a win-win situation where everybody is getting their needs met? And oftentimes that is possible. It's just about voicing our needs and being willing to creatively problem solve if we're getting stuck. And sometimes we're going to find that there are people in our lives that don't really feel like creatively problem solving and looking for win-win situations. And I suppose at that point, you have to figure out how close do you want this person to be with you if they're not going to respect some pretty reasonable requests. Something else that came up for me today when I've been thinking about permission granting is I had emailed you yesterday and I said, we're doing this over Skype. Is this going to be video or is this going to be audio? And I joked and I said, do I need to do my hair? And you said, oh, it's going to be video. So I guess that means you need to do your hair. But, this podcast, this group of people they are really casual and understanding. And really what was behind the question was, I've got this couple hour gap between when I finish with clients and when I see you. Do I have time to work out or not? And I didn't tell you that, did I? I just said, is this going to be a video or not? Do I need to do my hair? Because I thought, well, if I go run, then I need to take a shower and I need to do my hair and I, need to be not sweaty and look professional. And I thought, okay, I've got this choice here. I can try to power through and do everything and rush and feel stressed and come in, but my hair would look nice. I could cut my workout. And then at the end of the day, my anxiety is built up and I feel antsy and maybe I resent the fact that I missed my workout. Yeah, I thought, okay, I've got a choice here. How do I take care of myself? And I thought, you know what? I need to trust Kimberly. Kimberly says people are casual. They won't care. I'm going to get my workout and not worry about it. And that to me was, okay, if I wanted to show up perfectly with some type of image, then it would have meant me making sacrifices that I didn't really want to make. And so instead I can show up with a ponytail, relaxed, I have my workout done, and it's kind of a win-win situation, right?
And you're walking the walk.
Yeah. Yeah.
How weird would it be if you talking on self-care didn't do self-care?
Yeah. And I mean,
So
it could
good.
have been, I'm not saying that was the only right decision to make there, because somebody else might have said, what I need to do is I will feel more confident if I have a certain look. So I need to cut my workout down a lot so that I have time to kind of relax and go through and get ready and settle in. And to me, that would have also been like equal self-care. But I knew myself. I wanted to get in my run. And it's like you tune in enough to what you're needing. And I'll use resentment as a guide, right? Like, do I anticipate in the future I might resent the choice that I'm making? Because I think it's my choice. It's not your choice. It's my choice. So would I resent the choice that I made or not? And I thought I will resent myself for not giving myself that exercise that I wanted to get in. So yeah, ponytail.
It's
it is today, right?
Perfect example, isn't it? Like that's it. And there you are. You've just added up another affordable self-care, which is to get exercise, right?
Wear your hair in ponytail.
And wearing your hair. Exactly, exactly. And for me, I have dry shampoo in my hair because I didn't feel like washing it. And that was the
Yeah.
right thing to do for me on this end. So I think you're touching on, stopping going to these really huge ideas of self-care and bringing it down to these really core components of self-care, which is, asking yourself, what do I need? Or where does resent show up?
And recognizing we have a lot more choices in our life than maybe we see at first glance, and taking the minute to tune into what are the choices that we have, and then saying, okay, there may not be a perfect ideal option. Of these, which do I feel best about?
Right. Yeah, I'll share with you. I think that when we're talking about self-care, I remember when my children were young. And I was meeting with my friends who didn't have children, and they were all talking about how they met every Tuesday and they go to this meditation class. And internally, I was sort of rolling my eyes and resenting the fact that I couldn't do this and I couldn't just pack up and take my baby to a meditation. And I made this huge statement like, I'd do that if I could, right? And my friend stopped me really I loved that he came across so direct, but he said, you could. You just didn't prioritize that. You prioritize your maybe downtime or sleep or being with your baby. And it stopped me for a second because I was going to move into this mindset, I think, of other people get to take care of themselves and I don't. But then once he posed this quite directly, it gave me an opportunity to go, I'm a mom of young children. I'm also a business owner and a therapist. What do I prioritize as self-care? And in that moment, once he said that, I wasn't resentful anymore because I was like, no, I'm going to make the conscious decision to not go to meditation because I prioritize having some time at the end of the day with my child. Like it changed things for me to have that, like you're saying, that intention and understanding of our choices.
And we can get really tangled up in our relationship boundaries to say, well, if he's choosing this, then I have to choose it. Or if this works for me, then it also has to work for him. And that gets us into big trouble. I've had conversations with some friends. I am an extreme introvert. I need a lot of time by myself. I just love to be by myself. And I am friends with extroverts who thankfully, like, we can have these conversations and say, I just said, like, I think in my life, my routine is I can only hang out with people in the evenings like twice a week. Anything more than that, and I just get worn down. And they're like, wow, Jenn, like, they appreciate the transparency, right? Because then they know, oh, this isn't Jenn has a problem with us or doesn't like me or that there's some issue. They just know, like, okay, that doesn't work for me. I want to spend a lot more time socializing, but Jenn's only going to be around for a couple of those just because we can all respect what each other is needing. And I think the older we get and the more that we tune in to our needs and our intuition, the better we are at knowing what we need and then feeling more confident to communicate it, right?
Right. And to say, like, again, I think we've been taught that self-care has to look really big, and it might be just saying no or taking time to be on your own. Like, that's awesome self-care.
Yeah, like my thing is I love when I get home from work. My family jokes, we call it my uniform. I put my uniform when I get home from work, take a stab at what that is.
Your PJs.
Look at how yoga pants, t-shirt, socks, because my feet are always cold, and probably a hoodie, even though it's 95 degrees outside because I'm always cold. And I love to put my pajamas on as soon as I get home.
Right.
And, in other parts of the U.S., they would call these lounge clothes. But where I'm from, like, I just want my pajamas on as soon as I get home, and the coziest, comfiest ones. And this is something that works for me, right? The tactile care of I like something that is cozy and soft and doesn't have harsh edges, doesn't feel tight. It's just comfortable.
Right. And so fitting for what you need. No apologies, no judgment, right?
Yeah. I mean, my family, it's all about jokes, right? It's all about anything that we can have some humor and some lightness. And so this is the running family joke, which is fun too, right? Because we're like, Mom's got her uniform on. Like, yes, I do.
And you're owning it. That's so great. Yeah.
Yeah, there is something so liberating about just owning what you need and say, this is me, no apologies. And it's, if it's hurting somebody, that's different. But pajamas or going to bed early or dry shampoo, this isn't hurting anybody, but it's helping you a lot.
So, what are some other ideas that you have for free self-care?
Yeah. Journaling. Some people really like that. What I like to do with clients is say, look back across your life and what has worked for you. When you think that you've been doing a good job about taking care of yourself, what were things that you were seeing? I'm not big into journaling, but I know people that is a very important part of their practice, just like prayer or meditation, maybe for some people and not for others. I think a good deep breath is nice, stretching. We can carry tension in ways we don't realize. And I also think sometimes we just get stiff. And if we're in a job like ours where we sit so much of the day, it creates stiffness. Something that I think I'll end up posting about soon, but I haven't posted about is there are quite a lot of people that I've noticed where they don't keep a calendar. And then they end up having a bit of chaos in their life because I work with a lot of older adults who have a lot of chronic health issues and medical appointments. And then they get into a panic because they come to this week and they're getting reminder calls and, oh no, I'm seeing my endocrinologist and my cardiologist and this is just too much, and my neurologist and my primary care. And there's so much that can happen in just planning out. If we just write things down, what we need to do, we're not mentally rehearsing it, which sometimes we think is anxiety, but is also actually our brain trying to rehearse and remember. And if we just write it down, then it will stop rehearsing. But then we can be more planful and saying, oh, wait, this week is too busy. How about I try to see the dentist next week because I know I will be too stressed. What are some other ones? I like the watching your favorite movie. I remember in grad school, I just had some movies that were like comfort movies that I would play in the background that just made me feel good, or reading a favorite book from childhood, the ones that you're going to love. Can you think of any?
Well, I'm going to go back to the scheduling because for everyone who listens know that I've had my own medical issues. And I was so sick that my mom came out to take care of me ultimately, which I'm so grateful for. And, I wish everyone had, someone who's that committed. But the thing, when she was prepping to leave to go back to Australia, she was like my coach, right? Because I wasn't thinking straight, and she'd be like, all right, let's take a look at your life, right? And then the thing that she harped on the most, and now I look at it and I laugh, is regarding scheduling, is she was like, let's look at every day for the next month and we're going to schedule in breaks.
Oh,
right. And
that's so great.
Yeah. And I was quite resistant because I was like, but I have this hour and it's sort of for overflow people who don't come in regularly, but if they need a crisis session, I really need to keep that open. And she was like, no, you don't. Like, you are the crisis. You are the person who needs the care. And so we went through and we scheduled the whole thing. So the thing that was cool about this is we locked it because I think for me, I still wasn't calling it self-care. I was kind of seeming like that's quote unquote unnecessary. But she was like, no, we're locking it in your schedule. You cannot undo this. Once it's in, you cannot undo it. So I think that just scheduling a break, even if it's 15 minutes, has been huge for me and free, and something that I can incorporate on even on Sundays and Saturdays, right? Like, yeah, from 2 to 3, we all go to our rooms. We all have quiet time. That's what we do. It's important.
I love that. Yeah. In private practice, well, how I set up my schedule, I see 60-minute appointments, do 60-minute sessions, and I will see 2 people back to back and then put a 30-minute break. And that's on purpose for me because I know that the 15-minute break would be so easy for me to like bust through. And that 30 minutes becomes this protected space where I feel like it's more restorative for me. And if I need to get a call back in or need to go to the bathroom, eat a meal, get a snack, that I have time to do that. And yeah, that is so important to build through my day. And it's amazing how many people aren't able to do that or don't prioritize it.
Or eating, right? Just like making sure you get to eat, right?
Oh, yeah. And I get too that there is some privilege in what we have with our schedule, that not everybody has that same amount of privilege. And so I would challenge them to say, okay, are there ways that I can advocate for myself with my employer? Are there ways that I can like wiggle in some space for me? And I think that if you are feeling stuck, then it would be about asking someone, one of the more creative people or analytical people in your life, and saying, okay, if you were me, how would you fit this in? Because they may offer you some really good ideas that aren't a perfect solution, but might be a solution for some of the days. Because at a certain point, I think that this catches up to us. If we're not taking care of ourselves, our bodies do start to break down and we don't function as well. And emotionally, we don't function as well either.
Right. So true. Oh, this has been so great. I feel like, again, I love those conversations where we just get so slow and we just look at the simple stuff, right? You know, I know when I'm like listening to podcasts about podcasting, they're like, you've got to throw in the one core thing, and I'm like, yeah, I actually think that works for me. I like going down to like the basics, right? The one thing I will mention, which I have a part of all of the courses that I have, which is Daniel Siegel has what he calls the Healthy Mind Platter. Have you heard of the Healthy Mind Platter?
I haven't.
Oh, it's fabulous. I give it to every client, and I don't talk about it enough here on the podcast. But if you just Google in Healthy Mind Platter, what he shares is that you remember the old food pyramid, which just like tells you the portions of food. Now it's called My Food Plate or something like that. But Dan Siegel and David Rock, who are really high up in neuropsychology and neurobiology, they created the Healthy Mind Platter, which is the 7 core components you need to create a healthy brain. And the reason I love it is it's simple. It's like sleep, focus time, connecting time, downtime, playtime, like these basic concepts that as adults, so many times I will run through it with my clients, and I encourage everyone listening to Google it, or I can link it in the notes, is they'll do a little inventory and they're like, I forgot, or I didn't know that adults need playtime, right? Like silly playtime, like jumping on a trampoline or throwing a basketball, doing a crossword, that kind of thing. So that's another tool if you need to do a little inventory on where you're at and where you might make changes.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check that out. Yeah, I am a firm believer in adults need play. And I think our play can look different than what kids, just like a 3-year-old playing looks different than a 10-year-old playing because they're in a different developmental level. I think for me, a lot of my play comes from, I really do love hanging out with funny people, and we tell funny stories and we have funny takes on things. And there's like that play through the day, right? Not all serious all the time. I mean, that's just, we need play.
Right. And for me, it's dancing. I'm a terrible dancer, like the worst. Like the things just don't move the way they do for other people, but I have come to embrace it. And at the end of the day, I sort of just like shake it out and I'm like doing my thing. And my kids are kind of like looking at me crazy. But for me, it's such a release to like feel my feelings and do my thing.
Yeah.
It takes 5 minutes. I love it. So these are just playful ways. And I think you're right. It's sort of just checking in with what works best.
And it's unedited. It's just you getting to move.
Yeah. It's not perfect. It's imperfect. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you, Jen.
Yeah,
I think this is so good. I'm so grateful. Tell us where we can come and hear more about you.
Oh, yes. So you can find me on Instagram. I very occasionally push through posts to Facebook, but you're going to want to find me on Instagram at Dr. Jenn Hardy. Jenn with 2 N's. People ask me why, and I say because my parents spelled it that way. I guess I just...
I got a spare E in my name, Kimberly. I get it. You have to explain it to every single person.
It was sort of my parents' decision, and it caught on and it stuck with me. And yeah. So Dr. Jenn Hardy.
Great. And I know you do a newsletter?
I do. I call it a quarterly-ish newsletter because it'll go out roughly every 3 months. This last time I was like, oh, shoot, I'm supposed to do a newsletter in July, aren't I? And so I thought, what am I going to write about? And thankfully, my Instagram story viewers, they can tell when it's newsletter time because I'll put up a little question like, what should I write about in my newsletter? And they give me awesome ideas, right? And so then I pick a couple things that seem to stand out and write on those topics. But it comes out every few months. And on my website, what I've done is I have a writing section and a media section where I would post like this podcast, any newsletters that I've already published. You can see a little blurb of what's covered in the newsletter. But I encourage people to sign up because I will not bombard you with email, but you'd get a couple emails a year from me with the newsletter.
Fantastic. And your website?
drjennhardy.com.
There you go. Well, Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to have your time. It really means a lot.
I'm glad we were able to meet up in this video. Not many people see me. I don't ever do videos. So I think there's probably a lot of people who are like, oh, that's what she sounds like.
I know. I feel like I got the insider scoop over here. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And you're natural.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please note that this podcast or any other resources from cbtschool.com should not replace professional mental health care. If you feel you would benefit, please reach out to a provider in your area. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for supporting cbtschool.com.